So we say a very special good morning to you once again. Of course, if you're joining us for the very first time this morning, thank you so much for being here on New Era TT Radio. And it is time for exploring Buddhist concepts with Cassie Senghor. Cassie, good morning to you.
Good morning, Sir Charles.
Good morning, Cassie. How are you this morning?
Well, I must confess that I'm okay, but what disturbs me is the apparent rancor, in the country, the toing and froing, and especially when I'm hearing about, the closing down of institutions that affect the youth. When I heard about that today, I did feel very disturbed, because it's about youth and, these changes that apparently must take place with the change of government. I suppose that in essence, it's the same thing, the target audience is the same. Maybe the people who will teach them will change. Maybe the curriculum will change, I don't know. But to my mind, there is no need for the, kind of trying to make one look bad and to make the other look good. If the target audience is the same and if the goals are the same, why can't we just proceed, with what is best practice and move on? That's how I feel about it. And because I have been a silent listener to all your programs of your previous generation and 102 and currently on net radio, I listen very attentively to I would like to think all of them. Up to this morning, I was listening to the elders, especially, talking about Tunapuna and Amerindians and so on and so forth. So I'm not divorced from the goings on, but the program that I am doing is called Exploring Buddhist Concepts, and they are not at all divorced from life as we know it. I went into that a little bit last week to show where the Buddha spoke about involvement in the social fabric of life. And remember, he lived like 2,600 years ago. So one can say that historically, things have not changed. There is always that. There is always that. In other words, then there is always combativeness and therefore suffering. We have spoken about the Four Noble Truths, which are the cornerstone of Buddhist concepts and practices. And these are that there is suffering, as number one, that the cause of suffering, which is craving and grasping, and number three, which is the cessation of suffering, and number four, the path, which is the practices that lead us to the cessation of suffering. So knowing that over the years historically speaking, from 2,600 years ago to present day, that things, the more things change, and so to speak, the more they remain the same. Knowing that, experiencing then that is the case, I feel that, what my contribution here is very, or the contribution of Buddhism here through me is very relevant, and not just relevant in an intellectual way, but I certainly hope that it is relevant in a practical way. In so saying, I recall that last week when Mr. Hotep called in, he mentioned certain benefits that he got from his practices in meditation, where he was controlling the breath in particular, and what this led to one way or the other. There were benefits, and there was also a bit of harm coming to him through these practices, and probably not just to him, but to others. And I don't know if you will say a little more about what these benefits are. At any time on the program, you could always disrupt me to let me know, well, what are the benefits that he got through the practices. And any other listener, for that matter, who has meditated, who would like to state, the benefits of meditation, can certainly do so up to 11:45 a.m. today, Thursday, the 15th of May, 2025. I have taken to beginning, so to speak, with breathing meditation, because meditation is like a thread that runs through Buddhist practice. Not just a concept here, but a practical way to deal with life and life's situations. So we ended last week with breathing meditation B. You remember we dealt with breathing meditation A last week at the beginning, and we ended with breathing meditation B. Today we begin with breathing meditation B, and hopefully we will end with breathing meditation C. And that would be the last of the breathing practices that will be saved on the YouTube, and on the radio, so that listeners and friends and well-wishers and everyone who is interested can always go back to those recordings and have a listen to what these breathing meditations are. So, beginning with breathing meditation B, it says here, focus on the coming and going of your breath. Breathe normally without forcing it. Notice a sensation connected to breathing. Perhaps the sensation of air passing through your nostrils, the movement of your chest, the filling and emptying of your lungs. Choose the sensation that makes the most sense to you. When you bring your attention back to this sensation, do it in a relaxed way. Don't fight the thoughts. Don't follow them. Abandon them as soon as you realize they are there. Like someone putting down an object they have inadvertently picked up. At the end, inhale deeply, and as you exhale, come back. Stretch your legs and arms. Stand up slowly. So that is breathing meditation B. And let me just come forward here now a bit to the question of benefits. Experientially, I have found that meditation, and in particular, if you want to say, what I want to say, in particular, breathing meditation, which normally comes at the beginning of our practices. In other words, then, beginners are invited to do breathing meditation, which involves the sitting upright and in the best posture possible, like feeling the feet on the ground and feeling the arms on their laps and stretching the spine, not too tense, keeping the eyes a little bit downwards, trying your best not to stray with the eyes, and being in touch also, because it all involves the senses, really. You know, things come through the senses. Everything that we have to deal with is coming through the senses, whether it's the sense of sight or sound or smell or taste or touch or thought. You know, the six senses, everything comes through them. So whichever one things come true, one is then now begins then to experience one thing or another. And there's a lot in those experiences that one can refer to as suffering, you know, which I went into a bit. I read about that a bit, and to show that the original word dukkha, some believe, particular teachers believe that is not the best translation for the word dukkha. And many recommend that the word discomfort is much better suited as a translation of the word dukkha. So these discomforts, as I was saying, come through the senses. And when they do, they affect us in various ways, and we respond or react, as the case might be, according to our tendencies, or if we are, you know, depending on the level of practice that we do, we can, instead of just reacting, we can respond. In other words, then we have choice. And this is one of the benefits of a meditation practice. It gives us choice, because by following the breath, for instance, over time, it might even be the first time, you know, one will notice there's a certain calming down of the mind, you know, that even after our first practice, for instance, here and now, as we are doing this, one may notice, that listening, even in a little bit, the listening could change, So instead of straying into numerous bypaths, which is normal, one could find oneself a bit more attentive then, That is certainly one of the benefits. And of course, over time, the more one practices what we call shamatha, or calming the mind, that attention span will grow. You may not even notice, but it does grow. And I speak here from, experience and the experiences of others who have done it, that one's attentiveness can grow. The question of space and time is also our perception of those phenomena also grows. I have found that when I began, I was still employed, and little by little, I found that there was more time to do more things, somehow or the other, and that there was more space in which to do more things, So even at an early stage, one can begin to see benefits. Of course, these benefits are not alone, because, as I mentioned, tendencies do not go away willy-nilly just because you have sat down to meditate. As a matter of fact, tendencies, bad habits, good habits, what have you, tend to show themselves up more in meditation than previously than would previously be the case. And for some of us, when the tendencies are not good ones, we might be tempted to think, well, oh boy, this ain't working for me now, because your expectation is that only good things should come out of it. And certainly that is the truth. So what am I saying here? That when bad tendencies arise in the mind during meditation, is that a good thing or not a good thing? Just minutes before coming on air this morning, I got a query from a friend who is probably listening right now concerning that very thing. He said that on another frequency, he heard an ad about, in which Mandela says something about glorification of your sufferings, And in Buddhist practice, we certainly do think that our sufferings are helpful in one way or another, in that they bring to the fore those things which we ought to deal with if we are to achieve lasting, and I stress on the word lasting, if we are to achieve lasting happiness. Now, it may sound contradictory here, suffering and happiness in the same sentence, so to speak. But this is the case because suffering pervades, and that is why the Buddha and his teachings dealt with suffering to the extent that he did, and to the extent that it has come down through the ages, that suffering exists, and it has also come down through the ages and is extant at this point in time, that some people may think that, well, that's all you all talk about. You know, you Buddhists, you all keep talking about suffering. And here it is that we have an ad that says glorify your sufferings. Here it is that we have Buddhism saying that your sufferings are useful because it helps you to know where you are, what needs changing, so to speak. Not that you are going to be going about to change them, which might mess things up further. Not that you are going to rail about them, which might mess things up for sure, but that you are going to use these sufferings as anchors, so to speak, for your meditation. Anchors are what we come back to in our meditation practice, meaning that there are many anchors that one can use in meditation. Breathing is one of many. One can use sound, one can use sight, one can use taste, one can use touch, and often one can use thoughts. For instance, over the past week or few weeks, I have taken to using one per day, meaning that I sit with a group every Monday to Friday that practices meditation from 6:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. And each day is led by someone different in the group, different but standard. In other words, then, the same 4 or 5 persons who lead every week, kind of thing. And then, little by little, another person might be introduced to lead in the practice, as the case might be. But everyone, the leaders, may have their own angle as to what the meditation practice is. And when I follow, talking for myself here, I may take what that leader gives us as something to do throughout the day. Today, for instance, I am coming back to the sense of touch, and I must say that it's a long time that I haven't done that. The regular is like song, you come back to the songs, you come back to thoughts, you might come back to sights and things. But what is the sense of touch? These are all phenomenon, actually, and the sense of touch is no less a phenomenon. And in Buddhism, let me stress, all phenomena is impermanent. That means that they change, one might even say, from moment to moment, from this minute to another minute, by hour, half day by half day, as the case might be. These phenomena are all impermanent. They are unsatisfactory. That's the dukkha in it. And they are also, they have no self-existence then, meaning that they cannot stand by themselves. Any one of them, when you examine them, are made up of many things. When you examine the sense of sound is made up of many things. And so on throughout the other senses. Sight is made up of many things. The chair that you are sitting on is made up of many things. the frequency that that you use, that for instance Sir Charles is using, is made up of many things, not just one thing. You know, anything at all that you can perceive, think about then in this world is made up of many things. And therefore, we can safely say that there is no self-existence in anything, any phenomenon in the world. You remove one thing from a phenomenon, and it changes or it disappears, as the case might be. So today I am coming back to my decision. This is just me. I am using the sense of touch to that's my practice then for today, if you want to call it that. And therefore, I am able to look at the challenges that are involved in the sense of touch. So there are benefits and there are challenges, and some of the benefits, of course, of looking at the sense of touch is what, as I was mentioning at the beginning, what touches one in a mental way then, you know, this idea of toing and froing and, you know, everybody complaining and that kind of thing, which is a mental aspect, not a physical aspect. And that would be like, you know, like a challenge, you know, and you know, a benefit would be that, oh, I'm noticing a tendency to how to say, overthink then, you know, to be in touch with something more than necessary, to worry then, if you want to call it that. I'm just using these things as they pertain to me. But for you out there, you have your own life, you have your own experiences, and it would be different for each person. But generally speaking, this is how it works. So when, for instance, let me see if I can go back to that meditation that we just, breathing meditation that we just did. It says here, choose the sensation that makes the most sense to you. So this is in the sensation, in the breathing meditation B. Perhaps the sensation of air passing through your nostril, the movement of your chest, the filling and emptying of your lungs. Choose the sensation that makes the most sense to you. So it's not only that these things that I just mentioned there, but it's also some of the details of these things that will confront you, you know. Hence the reason why we will, you know, get on the phone and call in and we will say this about that, give our own opinions about this and that, and rightly so. You know, this is how we communicate with each other. And sometimes it's tolerable. Sometimes, you know, it touches us in a way that makes us feel, you know, well, you know, what the hell, what is the sense of all of this, you know? But let me just take some time here to, we are already at 11:33. Let me just take some time here to read some stuff and maybe taking a call or two if there are such, if there are listeners so inclined, and then we can, well, we take it from there. Let me just read first of all. And this has to do also with the ego. It is a fact that no one who is 100% committed to the existence and aggrandizement of his or her ego would ever meditate. Why? So let's let that sink in a little bit, you know. If you are committed to ego and, you know, you think, well, you are the best thing since sliced bread, you know, you kind of know everything, you know, your opinion is the best one, you know, other people's opinion aren't even worth the time of day, you know, that kind of thing. Pride, in other words, then, or any one of those things. You know, if you are committed to that, would you would ever meditate? You would never meditate. You know, that's what does it say now. Why? Because meditation involves looking into one's own experience. Ego is basically a bad idea with no future. And this kind of looking spells the death knell of ego. The first thing one begins to notice, that's to notice in meditation, while you might be taking in the breath and expelling the breath, practicing the meditation A, B, or B, the first thing one begins to notice is that things are not as solid and substantial as they previously seemed. There are gaps in one's thoughts and feelings. Things appear somewhat random. One may see things about oneself not previously noticed, perhaps one's pretensions or unkindness. Meditation is definitely not healthy for the ego. It is not possible to meditate unless you are more interested in finding out what is going on than in maintaining a particular idea of who you are. The ground of meditation then is developing a conceptual understanding that is more or less accurate and that will allow us to sit down on the meditation cushion and begin to take a look at ourselves. All right, so there's more, you know, but in the interest of time, I will leave it, I will stop there. You know, I will stop there. So yes, in the meditation, one will find benefits and one will find challenges. And what the ad that my friend referred to with Mandela, glorify your sufferings, which might sound, you know, a bit off-key to some, can be seen in the context of using your sufferings as an anchor to help in removing ego, in building attentiveness, you know, or to building love, for instance, you know, because that is one of the things Mandela is noted for, that, you know, in spite of the fact that he was incarcerated and, you know, persecuted, tortured, even that kind of thing, that when he was out of jail, you know, he showed so much kindness to his the people who were in the prison, and I think there was one person in particular, you know, to whom he showed kindness, that has gone down really in the in writings in the history, then, so to speak, you know, that his response to that kind of thing, you know, and there are many other people, in history who have done similar things. You know, they have been persecuted, and yet they have come out to show kindness. You know, one could quote Jesus in that manner. One can quote other folks, you know, in like manner. You know, I think Christianity says, "Do good to them that hate you." You know, the Buddha says, for instance, in the midst of hatred, to show non-hatred is happiness indeed. You know, so these masters and those who have gone before, who know something that we are learning, that we are getting to find out, know the power of that love, of that loving kindness, which one could say is an antidote then towards that. And if today, in my coming back to the anchor of the sense of touch, you know, I notice bad habits, pretensions, you know, ego trips and that sort of thing, which I'm sure will arise from time to time. It's up to me to notice them. I can then, you know, take a pause, look at them, allow them to arise, allow them to go, note them, and let the meditation do what it will. You know,
Cassie, let me just interrupt you.
Time for me to hold up here.
As the calls come in, I will bring them in between. Good morning, caller.
Hi, Cassie. Hi, everybody. I want to respond to what you asked of me. All right. Beside the one pitfall I mentioned, let me give a little history as to why I went into it. When I was preteen, one of the things I used to do that used to have me very calm inside was carving. So that was my go-to thing to get a peace of mind. The other thing I used to do was go roam the mountains up in the Northern Range and walk for hours. And that used to keep me calm inside. It used to allow me space also for reflection. Of course, as a preteen, I'm not doing a job. So therefore, I had time to do that. But when time you get into work and thing, you find I was unable to do those activities. And then the mental challenges were there. How do you get to that quiet space then? Right? I was introduced to the breathing exercises. And what I found, I was able to tap into that, able to quiet my senses. And it allowed me to have things surface from within that I could have used to address or areas in my life or improve them. It also allows for an intense focus in activities to make sure that you are doing things a lot better, because at that point in time, you are engaging your essence. What remained with me, notwithstanding the one area I mentioned that is a pitfall, was that I developed the ability to quiet my senses without needing to do any other activity. And that remained with me today, up to now. So if I want, I could just, at a moment's notice, go into extreme quietness and feel my own essence then. And that was one of the benefits to me from that whole breathing exercise. It moved from needing carving, it needed walking, traversing the mountains, and a few other activities. So one where you could do it almost on your own without needing any props then. And that is just to answer that question you asked of me. So I'll go on.
Okay, thanks very much.
Very well said, Mr. Hotep. I certainly like that example. Your example is very instructive there, you know. And having crossed certain ages from preteen to teen to young adult into adulthood kind of thing, and you know, maintaining that practice, as you say, up to now, is excellent, you know. And sharing it, of course, I know you might have done some of that too, is also excellent. And thanks again for your support, you know, in calling in and, you know, giving voice then to what we are dealing with here. today, to here and now. And I'm certainly hoping, it's 11:44, I'm certainly hoping that over time, more people will call in and tell us if they have tried it, the breathing exercise. You could always go back to your YouTube that Sir Charles will send out and, listen to the instructions, try them, see what happens, and call in and let us know, like always it said, like, subscribe, and share. So with that, let me say thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Sir Charles, for granting me the opportunity. And may all of us have a very powerful week ahead, notwithstanding the to's and fro's, which might be, in some instances, helpful.
Thank you very much, Cassie, for your input this morning, as always.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease.